Are you tired of weight loss products filled with artificial ingredients and empty promises? Discover the power of nature with Pure Revive, the ultimate solution for healthy weight loss. Check out the link in the video description now to start your journey with Pure Revive.
Emmy Award-winning writer Chelsea Devantes has revealed for the first time that she was violently abused, shot at, and terrorized by her first love. The head writer for The Problem with Jon Stewart and host of the 3M download podcast Glamorous Trash was forced to run for her life and change her name in a bid to escape him, only for him to hunt her down on stage a decade later. Devantes, who has also written for the Sarah Bareilles girl band Showgirls 5 Eva, has made her living making people laugh, so kept her past a secret for years, admitting she didn't want to have an ugly story. But in her new book, I Shouldn't Be Telling You This, But I'm Going to Anyway, she reveals she was finally ready to open up about the episode she calls the big scary domestic violence thing, only to be forced to withdraw the manuscript because the details were too dangerous to share. Right before the book went to print, I was told I had to delete the entire story of the domestic violence I experienced when I was very, very young, she says in her podcast. So they canceled the book, and I canceled the book, and it was devastating. However, Devantes' mom, herself a survivor of domestic violence, encouraged her daughter to fight and find a way to tell her story. My husband came up with the idea to black out enough words so that I could keep the story in and that technically they couldn't tell me to delete it, she says. The result is that large sections of the first and final chapters of I Shouldn't Be Telling You This are covered in black bars, concealing the worst of the abuse. It leaves many unanswered questions, but what is left hints at the horrors she endured. Now my comedy gal memoir looks more like the F*******ing Mueller report. She writes, statistically, if you grow up in a home that has abuse in it, you are way more likely to get into an abusive relationship yourself. Ever the rule follower, I leaped right into my probability. At a time and place that will both remain unspecified, I fell in love for the first time. With that, came a very disturbing epoch in my timeline, one that changed the course of my life for the far worse. She says the abuse started, as is so often the case, with manipulation and psychological trauma. The man she calls Earl would tell friends she was a slut. No one was allowed near her, and he would threaten anyone who tried. He had terrorized me so much at that point, that even the sound of his voice made me physically sick. But each attack was followed by a grand, romantic gesture to make up for it. Then he upped the ante. Between black bars, Devantes writes about the gun, redacted, shooting. Then, the second shooting. The third, redacted. The shots came through, redacted, got down on the floor. As I cleaned up the glass, I told myself I just had to endure it a little bit longer, and then it would go away. When she eventually went to the cops, one of their first questions was whether she had had sex with Earl. She started sobbing. I told them, redacted. That's how I thought of it back then, just sex I didn't want to have. The pair appeared in a courthouse and an unspecified ruling was made. Even though the abuse was bad enough in the judge's eyes to warrant this ruling, I was only beginning to accept that it had been abusive at all. Undeterred, Earl continued to torment Devantes, on one occasion climbing up a tree outside her bedroom at night and shining a laser pointer through the window. I lay in bed, terrified to move, wondering if he was trying to get my attention, or practicing his aim, she writes. She realized she was never going to be free as long as Earl knew where she lived. So, despite the fact that she had very little money and no job, she found a way to escape. Her mom and her godmother drove her to another state. Then, just as she started to settle into her new life, he managed to track her down. This time she changed her name, moved yet again, and held her breath, hoping her ordeal was finally over. Over the years I've tried many different things to leave the worst of my tragedies behind, but nothing has ever eased their grip on me, she writes. She describes a sorrow-filled, ravenously pained anger that has followed her ever since. Earl may not have killed me, she writes, but he killed the woman I was going to become, and I'll never get her back or